het ontmoedigen van tabak. So it's basically making people aware of getting tobacco out of the community. So at one end you have the tobacco industry, the involvement of smoking of tobacco is to do with health, of course. So it involves into health. But on the other hand, it's also a money maker. So what you have on one side is you have a money maker. That's what they call excise duty. That's tax. Accijnsen, that's what they call it in the Netherlands. And on the other hand, you have public health costs. But you also have people who go into their pension and they die earlier, etc., etc. And when you put all those numbers in one line, and you put an active and a passive, like a business overview, it makes the government 3 million euros every year.
Because they pay less you're saying they're paying less in pensions?
Pay less in pensions, people die earlier, people don't get involved into the health.
They don't cost the health system and you're not paying the pension. So there's double savings on people dying early, so there is an advantage to them being smokers.
Yes. So in one end they make money on selling tobacco.
The excise.
On one part it costs money of all the health costs, people blah blah blah, and in the end they pay less pension, etc., etc., etc. And so underneath, netto, it will give the state 3 billion euros a year. So they have no real part with getting tobacco out of the consuming part.
No, well, that's the difficult for many governments because they're earning such a lot of money from tobacco and from alcohol. So what are they going to replace it with?
Yeah. So what you see is in the Netherlands you saw a decline of tobacco users, and now you see a little bit of it's going a little bit up. And 1.5 million smokers of cannabis, regular smokers of cannabis, 90% of those smokers use joints to resonate with cannabis, usually filled with tobacco. So if we can contribute to that part, getting the tobacco out of the joints, being less addictive.
And how would you say that, how could we do this? Do you have a plan? Do you have, how can you see this going forward to reducing the amount of tobacco in the cannabis users?
Making people conscious about what they're smoking. Smoking is not good. Everything that you burn and inhale, that's not good.
So that would mean taking people over to oils, or what is the...
We have made a tobacco replacement alternative.
But you still smoke it, or what?
You're still smoking.
Yeah.
But now, that's a very important point. What you see regular in the Dutch cannabis industry is coffee shops sells a couple of products: hashish, cannabis, edibles, and pre-roll joints. That's basically it. So when they sell the pre-roll joints, it's always filled with tobacco.
I thought there'd been a ban on tobacco.
No. Per 1 April 2020, it's not allowed anymore to smoke tobacco inside the coffee shop.
Okay.
But it's still allowed to sell the joint at the front of the coffee shop. So when you walk inside and say, I want a Moroccan joint, almost filled with tobacco. So what you see is they put 1 gram of tobacco inside a joint. Normal cigarettes is around 0.8, filled with 0.3 product. So 1 gram of tobacco, 0.3 gram of product, cannabis or hashish. With our product, because combustion is not good, with our product you need 30 to 35% less of product, without all the chemicals, without the nicotine, without the additives, and you get the same filling, you get the same amount of product inside, and you have the same experience.
And you are smoking it.
And you are smoking it. So the handling is still there.
Yeah.
The charm of smoking, because people experience the charm of smoking, inhaling. It's a certain density that they're inhaling.
What about the temperature of the burn?
That's almost the same.
Same.
Yeah, it's almost the same. So the temperature of the burn, the moisture of the product is almost the same, but you're not getting all the bad chemicals inside. So the difference is you have a natural cannabinoid profile inside the product, enhances the effect of the THC, so the cannabis or the hashish you put inside. Therefore you need less of product to smoke. And on the other side you have the tobacco, and what you have is when you take 3 pulls of the cannabis joint with tobacco, you feel the effect, but then the nicotine knocks on your shoulder and says, hey buddy, what about me? And then you take another puff or 2 or 3, what you don't need, and then the effect is much, much intenser. So you get into from an active to a passive state.
So people could be smoking less and getting the same effect.
Better effect, less smoking. Yeah. So less is more in this case. Activating yourself and making sure you're over-consuming or overdosing cannabis.
Yeah. This seems to be a quandary with a lot of things, is that how much do you treat people as adults, or how much do you treat them as children? And so I'm going to fix it so that you can carry on doing what you're doing, but the effects won't be so bad. And you see that for instance, in the UK with the problems around diabetes, in that basically it's and obesity. Mm-hmm. So instead of education or other methods, what they're doing is reducing the size of people's stomachs surgically, so they can't eat very much at one time. So that would what I would call be treating someone like a child, because an adult you would say, you're overweight, you need to change your diet and do some more exercise. And an adult would say, okay, I'll do that, makes sense to me. So here what you've got is an approach that is essentially, let's not try and affect how people are thinking about it, but let's give them a product that does it for them. Now, do you see, or are you active in this other approach where there's education and you are helping people see what are the right choices and understanding what they're doing, so they can, help each other, or help for instance, parents to their children when they see them smoking?
Yeah.
Is there any movement do you see in Holland there?
Yeah, what we have done with our company, we have the company Kemph, falls on the restrictions of tobacco law. Mm-hmm. So we're not allowed to, the Marlboro man on the horse, we're not allowed to do any advertising. Yeah. So what we have done, we have created a part where we inform people about tobacco. So we have named that a part of the company tobacco free. So in Dutch is tabakvrij. Yeah. So what we do is we make people conscious. So we try to make people conscious in every form, shape, or matter, in this sense. And by doing so, I believe that one of those parts could resonate. One says, okay, I'm interested in my own health. The other person says, I'm interested in another person's health. The other person says, I'm interested into nature. So the aspect making people conscious about tobacco and what it does and how harmful it is to your own system, to your neighbors, to your loved ones, to your children, but also onto nature. How many trees do we have to cut down to get 1 kilo of tobacco, or 1 pack of 6, or whatever? So we try to get people more conscious about their own tobacco use, and especially in combination with cannabis. And by doing so, I believe that people can make their own conscious choices and are free of any addiction. And for this, I believe that once they are free, they can make better choices. And they can get in contact, they can resonate. It's like meeting a new person. You're not going to hug or sit on their laps immediately, but you get in contact. Hey, and what's your name? And hey, where are you from? And blah blah blah. You get acquainted, and that's what I believe. That's very important. That's always what I tell my children. For example, if you go and resonate with cannabis, always give one pull. First one pull. You never know how much it is inside. You never know what the cannabis is. You don't know the effect. You don't know what. Yeah. So first get that right. And once you know what that specific pool does, then you can make the next choice. Do I want another pool, or is it okay for me? And I believe that if we can make people more conscious about their choices with cannabis, it eventually evolves into being more conscious in a broader spectrum. Yes. So being more conscious about yourself, the choices you make, and how much influence you have on your own personal level by activating, making something of your life. And I believe that cannabis is a very important catalyst for that. But by misusing, abusing the plant, the medicine, it lures you and it tempts you. And then you basically smoke a couple of years of your life away, and you just suddenly wake up, I don't want to resonate with cannabis. I'm addicted to cannabis. No, that's not the case. You're addicted to tobacco. Get the tobacco out. And then you can start talking about creating a ceremonial space where you can maybe do breath work with cannabis. So you can inhale, or doing yoga with cannabis, or doing sound healing with cannabis, and going for that introspection. Yeah, you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that the first step is making people more conscious, dividing tobacco, sacred plant, but totally manipulated with all these ribbons around it by the industry, the impact, getting that out, and making people free of choices with resonating with cannabis. That's what I believe that's very important. And not only for the Netherlands, but of course the rest of Europe. Because in Europe, we are acquainted with smoking cannabis with tobacco. And that is because we smoked hashish with tobacco.
Yeah.
And that's something we have to get out of the system. And the people who really love working with cannabis, if they can make that differentiation, if they can taste a wine, when we go out for dinner, Paul, and you have this specific wine. I want to Chardonnay. Let me taste it. I want to smell it. Yeah, and that's exactly what I want people to experience. Yeah. So when they smoke the product Kemph with their cannabis or hashish, they take a few. This is it, and then they have the tobacco experience, and then it hits them on the throat, and the body doesn't lie. Then you know this is the truth. This is the truth for now, for me, to make me more conscious and make me helping or being able to make conscious decisions about smoking cannabis.
So you mentioned this name. This is the substitute for tobacco. And it's called
alternative. Tobacco alternative. Kemph.
Kemph.
Yeah, it's an old Dutch word. So I live in the south, and you have different regions in the Netherlands, 13 provinces. And that's the North Brabant province. And the old word for hemp is called Kemph. Kemp. And I put an H behind it to give it the hemp feeling. And when you go to Belgium, the old word for hemp is also Kemph. So it's more like the tradition. So Kemph together with cannabis or hash.
Yes, and Kemph comes from the cannabis plant as well.
Yeah, from the hemp.
Okay, so it's coming from the hemp,
hemp,
but it's substituting for the tobacco. I'd like to ask another question about. We've talked about the re-education about the tobacco side and understanding the politics of it and what's happened in the past and why it's taken that kind of place. Have you got that kind of the equivalent information about your cannabis products on your website and educating people as to how they can be useful, how you can use them well, and are you involved in medicinal use of the cannabis products?
Yes. So what we have done on tobacco-free, tabakvrij, you have all the information about a conscious community, about making conscious choices, about the effects of tobacco, of the effects of cannabis, together with tobacco, what the influence is to human health, but also to nature health. So we try to make people as conscious as possible.
Yeah, that I've got. I'm interested in just the information you have about the cannabinoids and the cannabis.
So and when you look at the cannabinoids, I'm interested in the science of cannabis, and what you see is that all these different cannabinoids and of course terpenes. The main name is terpenoids, but you divide it under cannabinoids and terpenes. Those together have an entourage effect, and that entourage effect is basically built upon different compounds of that plant that contribute into one whole effect. So it resonates in the body. And what our science is with Kemph, our product, you have a natural profile of active ingredients, active cannabinoids, working together with the product you put inside. So it catalyzes the effect. So for that reason you only need less. And that also gives you that effect that you're looking for, because you want to combust as less as possible. And for that reason I believe that it's also less harmful to your body, and that your body is able to break down that combustion, and also that you can use it more on a medicinal part. Of course we have our oils, we have our cannabinoid oils, CBD oils, CBG oils, CBC oils, CBN oils, and that you can also use. But this is the way I see how you can basically find your own relief with smoking.
Do you make any comparison with, for instance, the amount and the effects of alcohol in your community, or because here I know in the UK there was a marked, when marijuana smoking really hit, the pubs weren't making so much money, and so there's a economic aspect, but surely there's also a health aspect. If you're going to have a recreational medicine, then hopefully there is to be seen, maybe statistically or just hearsay, that smoking marijuana has less perhaps cost impacts to society, or how would you see that discussion?
They've done a research in the Netherlands. They do that every 2 years, and what the 2020 report showed is that the increase of cannabis use was 80% more. The last measurement, so 2018 to 2020, there were 80% more use of cannabis.
2018 to 2020. 2 years you're talking about.
In 2 years.
Why would it suddenly go up?
My belief is relief. So you see that a lot of people get more stressed. Of course, the corona also is a part of that. So you see that the cannabis use, and with every customer that I talk to, every coffee shop that I talk to, they're doing lots and lots more business. So combination alcohol, of course people go drinking, of course that's also something that people want to use. But I think with cannabis, people make their own decision when they want to use it and why they want to use it. And what you see is that people want an instant relief. So for my belief, for example, I like meditating or doing yoga or whatever with smoking cannabis, or just laying down and just being in my own space. But you see a lot of people working the whole day and going by the coffee shop, and they just want to be super stoned. They just want to lie on the couch and just, be stoned. So everybody has its own use, but you see that there's people are using more cannabis, more and more cannabis.
What percentage would you say of users in Holland are using it mostly for the medical effects?
I couldn't answer the question.
But some of your products are particularly aimed at their medical benefits?
Yes.
Which ones are those?
The CBD.
Yep.
Stress, tension, anxiety. CBC, pain relief. Inflammation. CBG, equanimous, more focused. CBN, more relaxant, sleeping assistant, sleeping aid. And then you have all these complaints and you make a combination of different cannabinoids. So you can say, you have these complaints, then you should use this and this. And that's something you can combine and use that over a period of time. We advise people to use it 8 to 12 weeks at least.
Yeah.
So you can really you feel that effect. With a good user guideline, when you have the good user guideline, then you can really help people fine tune with the exact amount that they need.
Do you have information on? I've heard people with Parkinson's have had some very good results, and with arthritis that it's very good pain. And what would you say are the main ailments or sicknesses that are benefiting from the cannabinoids?
Sleep, stress, anxiety, and pain. Those three. I think that summarizes the why people reach out the most. And that's not everybody resonates on that level because it's not the miracle product that resolves everything. But when you use it consistently with good advice and the right differentiation of cannabinoids, then you can get a maximum of effect. And that depends on the person. Sometimes we get people like within 1 week, wow, amazing. And sometimes people work with it for 3 months and they say, sorry, for me no effect.
And the harmful side, I mean, let's compare it with tobacco smoking and using alcohol. What is your view on the any harm that is coming to individuals and society from marijuana use?
The use of tobacco is they measure that in the Netherlands, and it's almost at the highest level. So you have heroin, methadone, then you have cocaine, and then you have tobacco. I think tobacco is number 3, and then cannabis is around number 8. And then you have MDMA or ecstasy or mushrooms that are underneath that.
Yes, that sounds like we had.
But I think when you get the tobacco out of that part, then the cannabis goes down.
Even lower. Yes, there was the government asked for some research in the UK, and the report showed that, as you say. The reason I think for heroin and morphine abuse is so harmful is because it's a black market and it's always cut. So you're not getting a clean product. I think that's part of it. But clearly that was causing a lot of cost to society. And then you have tobacco and alcohol being very expensive for society. And marijuana much lower down. And the interesting thing was that really you could say you couldn't find any harm for the psychedelics. In fact, they were the ones where people were benefiting enormously. So it seems like very similar that you have a product that shows very little harm, and that harm is not physical so much as maybe psychological or social.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the whole concept of creating such a product is basically getting the tobacco out of the joint. That summarizes it.
Yeah.
And on one side, that's a very good business idea. And on the other side is also contributing, of course, but that's the most important part. Contributing to a more healthy, more conscious cannabis culture in the Netherlands and in Europe.
What is your background, and how did you come to be in this business?
So my original background is I'm from banking and finance. So what I did is I insured a lot of coffee shops. It was hard to insure companies. So one of those categories was coffee shops.
And we're talking about coffee shops in Amsterdam that
coffee shops or in the Netherlands that are selling cannabis. So I came across that industry via my finances. I had an insurance office where I also did mortgages and finances, etc. Finally, I sold that part of the company in 2009, 2010. And my idea was starting in the cannabis industry because I really liked it. I saw it resonated with me. So what I wanted to do firstly was go to the United States to get a medicinal cannabis license to sell cannabis to medical users. So that was the first initial idea. So I wanted to do it in San Francisco. Finally got back in the Netherlands and started with selling CBD oil. That's how I started. I also did some of the THC oil, but that was on the illegal side. Of course, the medicinal parts of that as well. But finally, I started selling the CBD oil. So, I started a business, online business. Also, I created an own brand. So you had Cannabis and Bas, my first name, integrated into Cannabis. So that's how I started the whole branding. And finally came up with some other ideas in regards to the whole industry. And one of those ideas was also a tobacco alternative. Like I explained before, to get all the tobacco out of the Dutch coffee shop culture, or the cannabis culture, not only in the Netherlands, but future ideas also to do it in Europe, because you see that in Spain, you see that in France, you see that in Italy, you see that in Germany, you see that in Belgium, you see that in the UK as well. And that has to do with the hashish, the background story I told you about the 60s, 70s, where do you need to roll your hashish in, because there wasn't much cannabis around. Thai sticks, of course, maybe Jamaican weed or whatever. Later came the real Dutch cannabis, also from Cali. And then, of course, other countries started to introduce cannabis in their, grown cannabis in their own environment. Really involved in the whole industry. So I believe together with my wife we have a very important impact. My family-in-law also has a coffee shop in Eindhoven, the city where we live. So my wife is also very related to cannabis in her own manner, because when she was a young girl, around about, I think the coffee shop is now 32 years old, so maybe 5, 6 years old. So she already knows cannabis, cutting cannabis and doing whatever. So finally we met each other, and now we basically work with cannabis on our own part, and trying to help people connect in a positive way with cannabis.
And you were telling me that there is an organization that I contacted you recently that are involved in promoting good practices in the cannabis industry.
Yeah, you have a few coffee shop bonds, or I don't know the exact English word for that. That's
are we looking like association or trade union?
Union.
It's
That's
like
the right
union.
word.
Yeah,
Union. Yeah, coffee shop union.
Yeah.
So you see a couple of coffee shop unions spread over the country, and you see a lot of companies with cannabis cups, that sort of stuff, where the cannabis culture is very close related to each other. They know each other. They heard of each other. So it's a unique world, unique people, very liberating people. Also a little bit of the rebels, maybe some outsiders, or maybe some outlaws as well. And it's a beautiful industry to work in. So it's my part, and also the part of my wife, to give a positive influence. And what you see right now is that the coffee shop industry is picking up that specific space, because they are aware that tobacco will eventually leave the industry. Is it by law, or is it naturally growing? I think that the law will eventually push the cannabis industry, the coffee shop industry into, they have to get the tobacco out of the joints, because per 1 April 2020 it's not allowed to smoke cannabis with tobacco inside a coffee shop. Then came Corona. What you saw via that particular time frame is that during Corona all the coffee shops were allowed to sell the products but not allowed to let customers come inside, smoke. So for a lot of consumers it was sort of inevitable that they could pick up their material because they couldn't smoke inside. And now we see that the Corona is past, so that's a little bit to the history. Now you see that coffee shops open again. Some stay, a pick-up counter. Some open up more. So you see that the specific need of smoking inside is also higher. So you see that they have to, give people the opportunity to smoke inside, or pure, or with vaporizer, or whatever. But you still see that 90% of cannabis consumers smokes a joint. So of course vaping, but it doesn't give that same charm. And the smoking has a specific charm. And you see a lot of people from outer Netherlands also demanding, maybe a big question, but asking for products that have no tobacco inside. Because they don't want to smoke tobacco. And you see a younger, fresh public, every year new 18-year-olds are allowed inside the coffee shop, so they get introduced by going for the first time inside a coffee shop and are able to buy a product without tobacco. So what we try to do from our side is to influence in a positive way, so introducing the concept, sharing the concept, talking to the workers of the specific coffee shops, making sure the managers are involved, and by doing so everybody will be positively influenced by advising the consumer, hey, what would you like to use and why would you like to use it? And that way can advise also at the front, buy this joint without tobacco. And also try to push a little bit on the integrity button. Hey, do you want to contribute to a very, 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 very nasty world? And it's the tobacco branch, of course. And then they get more conscious. And they're all salespeople in the end, because they work there. And one is of course a little bit more has more touch with that. Some don't, but it's our responsibility to make the consumer aware of what is also possible. But if you sell it, then you see, okay, there's more demand. And the coffee shops that do exactly what we say, that's not like you have to do it like this, but more like helping them, assisting them, looking at, make sure that there are some pre-rolled joints on your chart, on your menu, that they can buy. Then have a product and have a choice. Make sure you make consumers aware of the possibilities and also the effect by tasting. Make sure taste it. Taste the product. Taste it with tobacco. What does your body say? That's very important.
And on a wider scale, you see there are like Portugal has legalized marijuana to a vast extent. I mean, not maybe the dealing, but I think for your own use. Years ago, when I was in Switzerland, there were various cantonal councils voting on legalizing in certain ways. So there is a movement in Europe. It's a bit sluggish in the UK. We don't really have much happening there, but it is happening. Spain, I think, also has a liberal policy. And America, many of the states now going. Do you think that will continue with this liberalization, they call it, but
I think two aspects are very important. Government doesn't want to miss out, and the harmful part of using cannabis is put in a different perspective. They know people want to use cannabis, but why not support it? Why don't governments give the consumer the option of buying a clean product that is regulated and that is distributed in a legal way without having any issues, without having any problems, and doing so also making sure that they get tax over that specific part.
Yeah, I would think that that's a strong argument. But in the UK, when in the last 10 years, there's this very clear report showing how harmless it was, and they clearly know how much revenue there could be, and yet the resistance is high. And my only thought is that the brainwashing has been so strong that cannabis is bad somehow, or that it will make people lazy, and that I don't know, but there are prejudices around which clearly do not relate to the facts. There are plenty of people who smoke while they work.
Yeah,
for instance.
They have everybody knows the stepping stone theory.
Yes.
He uses cocaine now, but he started with cannabis. I think that's the stigmas and dogmas around cannabis are huge, imprinted, repeated over and over and over and over and over, and that is changing because everybody knows somebody, or even in politics, they use the product and they know I use it as well, and I find my relief as well. I find my relief in stress, in anxiety. I find it nice to just basically relax and watch a movie, or doing my exercises, or even making love. Yeah. So.
But I think there must be the back thought for people like doctors, psychotherapists, particularly politicians, that if they come out, that will be the end of their career, or they will.
Of course,
be involved.
everything. When you have a Dutch saying, if you make a hole for somebody, you at least have a job. Yeah, that's so true. So we can all say, let's move forward to legalization, and what are they talking about? But we also have to realize that if enforcement gets millions of pounds or euros or whatever, and they're basically put to rest, and their job is at stake, then that could be a problem. So it's not only politics that say yes, but it's a whole part of an industry that is created around it, rolling up all these cannabis groweries, putting away people. And what you see now in the States, for example, is that when you apply for a recreational license to sell cannabis, you had to be arrested for cannabis. So people who got arrested for smoking a doobie in the park, doing nothing, harming nobody, and getting arrested, and locked up for 4 years, for example, those people get involved in a positive way. They say, okay, those people have to get a second chance. And that's what we also see in the States. And cannabis is still a plant with a lot of mystical things around it. And let's face the facts. People know also in politics, they know that cannabis also opens up, is a conscious maker. So that's also a little bit spooky.
There's also this, it'll free people's minds, and then they will lose the plot with keeping their nose to the grindstone and following the political agenda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why, besides my own personal development, working with medicinal plants, evolving, growing, this is also a very important part for me as a human being to contribute. Because it's not me, the plant is doing all the work. I'm just more a servant. I'm in service of. And I use my intelligence, my way of moving, and my creativity that I also get from using plants, and especially cannabis, to help speed up this process.
Yeah.
To help people make more free choices for themselves.
Yeah. I think it's such a strange fear, because the fear is that people will just do what they like, and they won't follow as I say, the agendas.
Yeah.
But I don't know about your experience. My experience is that people do what they like, and what they like is to contribute, to play, to enjoy life, and doing less harm, say, than somebody who's using alcohol.
Exactly.
And so it's a rather strange one, because what is what is this fear of, I don't know, letting go of I guess it's a question of the brainwash is being threatened.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the philosophy, the mystical part, and everything that surrounds the specific use of cannabis is unique, and it will take a few years, maybe a decade, to set people free. And once the big European countries have replaced their illegality through legality, and they regulate it, and they see that everybody, then that wave is unstoppable. And I think then the possibilities of having a license or having licenses, and then it's all about spreading as much attention and knowledge about the plant, and then you can also bring people into ceremonial space where they can really have that introspection with themselves via breathwork, via yoga, via exercise, via sauna, via sound healing, whatever, or even nature walks, or just making love.
So would you say that the wider use of cannabis is making for a positive change in society?
Wider conscious use. Really knowing what type of cannabis, what space are you in, what do you want from the specific day, what do you need to do, and making a conscious choice about connection.
So this is intention.
Absolutely.
Using the cannabis with intention,
Yes.
which would align it with the shamanic use of any plant medicine.
Absolutely. And I think by introducing people with the different options they have, eventually you can gradually push people a little bit to that space where they go out of their comfort zone in the unknown and reach out to a freedom they've never experienced before. And I think that's the sweet spot that I'm trying to create. But at the same time, you have the cannabis industry making lots of money, by selling the product. And then you have to go back to those entrepreneurs that have that responsibility to make sure that they consciously move their crowd as well to a certain direction. And I think by doing this interview with you, it also reflects on my responsibility, what I have to share, and what I can share with my experience and how I look at cannabis use, and making sure that also young people make a conscious choice when they are connecting with cannabis, because that's also where it starts.
Yeah.
And I think the stepping stone wouldn't be eventually Tina was addicted to heroin and cocaine and lost her life due overdose, but using the stepping stone as a positive way. Cannabis was my introduction to my conscious revelation. And via that way I come across yoga, and I come across maybe other plant medicines or nature walks or more conscious choices.
So watch out. If
Watch
you
out.
smoke marijuana, you might end up doing yoga and eating well and looking after yourself and and changing your job to something more sustainable.
Exactly. Exactly.
How awful.
So a positive stepping stone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's leave it there. A positive stepping stone. Baz, thank you very, very much for talking to me and sharing your experience.
Yeah, thank you for recording it all.
Yeah.
Being in the moment, thank you very much, and let's enjoy this beautiful weekend.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.